In this episode of My Mic Sounds Nice, Al Green lifts a cane and his congressional colleagues lift their voice and sing. It was like karaoke night gone wrong. A recent survey revealed more than 60% of women are afraid of men. I'm not sure how they came to this conclusion. It's like they studied history or something. Spring break is typically the time for college students to have fun and make questionable decisions. Well, Howard University has a 30-plus spring break tradition of service that continues to grow. Then we close things out with the Robinson Report.
Welcome to My Mic Sounds Nice, a freestyle conversation about health, relationships, and culture. Once again, this is Tim, always glad to be in the building.
Mic check 1, 2. My mic sounds nice. This is Kevin, a.k.a. Reggie Jacks, coming from the Bronx. Thanks for joining us today.
My mic sounds nice. This is Aaron from Strong Island. We would use salt and pepper, but they might sue us. How you doing today, fellas?
We good, and we love the way the music drops so that our producer could be heard real crystal clear. So y'all understand, if y'all like it, it's because of Aaron. If you don't like it, it's still because of Aaron. So with that being said,
it's like that true hip hop. The beat drop for the head MC.
The head MC that comes in last to make the record. It's like, you know what I mean? Like at best, we Derek Jeter, the leadoff guy, but A brings us home. So either that or gets us thrown out at third.
if you got time for that.
Spring training is coming up, man. You know, the spring training is actually starting now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And actually, tomorrow or tonight is daylight savings time. So we lose an hour.
That's good. We get back to long days.
Evening, yeah.
Yeah, long days, but then it's dark in the morning when I'm walking the dog.
Yeah. So, can you believe though? Think about it. Winter's over. What in a week? 2 weeks?
2 weeks. The 21st.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. What we got today?
Let's jump into it. So we saw the Donald Trump spoke to the Congress on Tuesday for the joint session. And then speaking to the Congressman Al Green decides he's going to demonstrate, gets up, begins to yell, shake his cane, and interrupts. And the Speaker of the House basically has a sergeant of arms throw him out the House. And then the next day, they censure him. And then following, as they're censuring him, after they vote for the censure, which Democrats also voted for, they started to sing "Lift Every Voice and Sing."
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Was it "Lift Every Voice and Sing" or "We Shall Overcome"?
I'm sorry. We shall overcome. You're right.
Kev's like, they all sound alike.
He's like,
all the Negro spirituals are the same.
He's like, it was a Negro hymn sung in March for a federal government that says they can't acknowledge Black history. Let that marinate for a second.
It was cringeworthy for me. It was cringeworthy.
I don't know what overcome means coming from them.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unpack here, man. You know, like it's people get censured in Congress all the time. It is not necessarily the end of the world, but there's so many angles to this that's why we want to cover it. So the first question is, should Al Green have been censured? You got to think Marjorie Taylor Greene and what's the name? Lauren Boebert. They both yelled at Democratic presidents at least 3 separate times during State of the Unions, and they were never censured. So
Joe Wilson yells out, "You lie." to Obama.
Yes. So was it even fair that he got censured?
I think the way you did it, you kind of put two questions together, which is good. That because based upon the question becomes, based upon the rules, if his actions warranted being censured, then the question is, how come those same disruptions in the past didn't get censured? So it becomes, if nobody is following the rule, is the rule really the rule when you're picking and choosing? So, I mean, because according to the rules, that level of disruption could warrant it. But that level of disruption as of late has become almost part of the narrative whenever they're speaking, that the party that's not in power, they're planning how we're going to protest, what are we going to do to let our presence and our defiance be known. And also the question is, why did the Democrats let him ride solo?
Yeah. What you think, Kev? You think he should have been censored?
I don't think so. I think that, the rules are what you enforce them to be. And, if this is what we're doing, where you can yell out while the president is speaking, and that's no longer considered, that's now part of the acceptable decorum, then he shouldn't be censored.
Yeah. I think that he shouldn't be censored because past history. And I think it's so crazy that when you consider the voting, that Bobbitt and Taylor Greene voted to censure him for their own behavior. If they had an ounce of integrity, they would have voted present and not voted either way. But for them to censure him, it just shows that there's no level of integrity or trying to be correct. It's about being as partisan as possible. That being said, that he shouldn't have been censured, I think his behavior was just as wrong as Bobbitt and Taylor Greene. And I can't be offended that you say to Obama, you lie. We all lost our stuff when that happened. We all, especially the Black community, we were like, oh my God, how could anybody say that to a president? And I stand in that. And I can't stand in that and then not have a problem with Al Green, because then I'm not really standing in anything ethical. I'm just standing and riding for my Black president. And that's not what I was doing.
No, I agree. I think, what the government has become in how it plays itself out. I think almost every school teacher in America has to spend time undoing what is being seen, because the behavior patterns that, as Kev said, I mean, if you don't enforce the rules, then the rules don't apply. How many students that look like us have been suspended and kicked out for the type of behavior that we see elected officials do in moments where decorum is supposed to set the tone?
Yeah.
You can't do that on your job. I mean, depending on where you work.
Teachers behave that way, but that's a whole nother conversation.
So let me ask you what y'all think about the 10 Democrats who voted along with the Republican to censure him, because without them, he doesn't get censured. The vote fails.
Oh, for real?
Yes.
I think I think most of them are ridiculous. I don't know if they're doing it. Maybe I don't know if they're in swing districts where they feel like they had to do that.
I think they are moderate Republican. That the article I saw, I think said some of them at the very least were moderate Republicans.
You mean moderate Democrats?
I mean Democrats. Yes, I'm sorry.
But I think that because the policy has changed, like this is the new normal. Whether you like it or not, this is what the normal is. This is what acceptable is. And I don't think you should be censured for doing something which has been acceptable for the past 4 years, for the past 3 years, definitely 4. Then why suddenly you're going to be like want to hold people accountable?
I think part of it may have been, if I'm not mistaken, that Jeffries had asked for them not to be disruptive.
He did. He did.
And so I don't know if the 10 were towing that line as well as being moderate in their thinking. But the whole demonstration by the Democrats, to me, just was an epic fail, from the paddles to some people dressed in certain colors. And it just wasn't uniform, and it's also disheartening because it makes it seem like, okay, we're going to do this, but then Al jumped way out there. That we've all been in certain situations where it's like, yo, we're going to pop off, but we only going to do it up to this point. And then you get the one dude that jumps all the way out there. But for us, we knew if that one person jumped out there, by law, we had to also jump out there with them.
Yeah.
And then we would settle it behind closed doors. But we live by a different code. Like, because Al Green was the dude who set it off at the club, and you chilling, you like, man, now we got to fight our way out because of Al. But I think the dysfunction of the Democratic Party overall right now was totally on display. I wish I could say I was surprised that 10 people voted for censure.
No, and I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was 224 to 198.
No.
So the 10 weren't the swing vote. Well, I take some issue with Kevin, and Kev feels like that's the new norm. And so you're saying, Kevin, the norm is more important than having moral standards and reverence for the office, which some of the Democrats said that's why they voted that way, which I can, although I disagree with their actions, I respect why they did it. If we just say, oh, this is the new norm and we all behave that way, where is the line?
The line is always moving. The line is consistently moved. What used to happen for the president when FDR was in a wheelchair and they didn't show the wheelchair, and when he fell over in the wheelchair during the press conference and they picked him up and nobody reported that was the line. That was okay. We're not going to report these things. The line is constantly moving. One thing that I remember when one time the superintendent said to me, he's like, listen, if you walk down the hallway and there's a piece of paper on the floor and you walk past that piece of paper as an administrator, as a leader, you've just set the new policy. And now that's the policy. When everybody else walks by, we're going to ignore that. The policy consistently shifts and it consistently changes. And it's not about whether we like it or not. This is where it is.
No, that the line, but the problem with your comment is that you're speaking as the line is an imaginary thing. The line is defined by real human action,
and that's the actions those are the actions that they've been doing.
And what I'm saying to you is that there isn't a line because 10 Democrats refused to stand with Al Green and said, no, I'm going to support the institution. Now you have a few, in all totality, you have less than 10 people in Congress who have ever chosen to go to a State of the Union and act out. So if you're going to talk about a line, you're talking about hundreds of people.
So that
have showed decorum.
But if you've been warned, you continue to be warned, and then you get removed, maybe that's the line.
But my point is that you can't say that 10 people are the line.
But at some point, you also then delve into the discussion of what constitutes disruption.
Yeah, I mean,
to some people, the little panel things or writing that's a lie. Some people could see that as disruption according to what is written as the rules. But the problem, building off of what Kev said, and even the point you were bringing up, is that when disruption and disregard for order is normalized, what does that say about us as a society?
Yes. And if we have hard rules, Kevin, that are written in place,
but they're not hard.
They are. You get censured for certain behavior. There's behavior that is acceptable in the Congress, and how you're punished may be up for interpretation. But certain things,
So if he was disruptive He's told to stop being disruptive. If you're going to continue to be disruptive, you're going to get removed. And he continued on and he removed. I can say that he did go further than the others did.
Yeah. I'm just saying that I think that if we just lie down to the new normal, if people don't stand up and go, oh, this is the way things are now, and not give pushback, you never really have a society worth fighting for. You know, I disagree with pushing back against DEI. I disagree with pushing back against gay rights over the last 10 years. However, someone else with different opinions pushed back, and now we have a new normal. That doesn't make it right.
Agreed. And then
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying
yes.
Yeah. All right. I don't mean to imply that you did. That was wrong of me. That's not what
I think. When you think about having a certain level of reverence and respect, and I'm saying reverence in the form of regard, not reverence in the form of worship, for government and for position, I believe that comes along with probably an insinuated level of character. And you currently have a twice impeached felon operating in the office. And I think that it has become more challenging to hold the same reverence and regard for the office, because it's going past, in some people's views, it's going past my candidate won or my candidate didn't win. Is getting to like, okay, what kind of people are in these positions that were supposedly set up for a nation to have a level of regard and respect, whether your particular person that you voted for won or not. And in some ways that is eroding. And that's where things really become personal and dangerous, because that was clearly one of the most partisan speeches that was given that I recall remembering watching, whether it's presenting to the joint group or official states of the union. That he literally was talking to his side of the room.
Yeah, it didn't
he
even
called
feel
people
like
out by
a state
name.
of union. It didn't even feel like a state of a union.
Well, because technically it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, but he called out people by name. He was rude. He was disrespectful from the podium.
He called the woman Pocahontas.
Yeah, like, you know, he's.
All right, I missed that. Could someone explain that to me, and for our audience also?
What was it?
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah,
my goodness.
Senator Elizabeth Warren. He made something. He said something about some whatever policy that he was doing, and he said he said something about even so and so would be happy about it or wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, and said Pocahontas because one time Elizabeth Warren had said that she was part Native American.
Family told her she was Native American, and she went with that, and it turns out that she wasn't.
And so, if the president can call you Pocahontas,
I mean, you know,
it's nobody, and that doesn't come up as objectionable or questionable.
Like nobody's safe.
Yeah. I mean, you know, is it English parliamentary style? You know, although I know they have reverence for the prime minister and things, but they go at it. They yelling and screaming and I mean, I guess I wish if Al Green wanted to act up, if the Democrats want to act up for something that matters. Act up when they debating one of these policies. Act a fool when something's going down.
When it's time to vote. Yeah. Act a fool. Yeah. Act a fool at Doge. You know? Because otherwise we're gonna have to Wu-Tang it. We're gonna have to protect our necks. Yeah. But
Speaking of protect your necks.
Yeah, we're gonna see what's forthcoming with that. And like Chuck D said, I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened it and read it, and they said it was suckers. So
Y'all stay in the fight. Don't fall for the smoke signals.
Exactly.
Worry about the real policies that are being enacted.
But also don't give away the power that you have to stand for what you believe to be ethical and right. And just because people are acting a fool around you does not mean you have to become another fool.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna post the article because I'm having difficulty. So let's just get into it.
Got
you. All right. So recently there was an article about a poll where women from ages 18 to 24 said that they were about 60%, almost 2/3 of the women said that they were afraid of men. They were afraid of men. And then years ago, I don't know if it was years ago, before, not too long ago, there was this thing going around on social media where they asked a woman, would they rather be alone in the woods, either with a bear or a man that they did not know? And most of the women elected to be alone with a bear.
Yes. In the original viral video, only one female said, I would rather be alone with a man.
Shout out to Yogi.
And almost more interesting than that is the fact that men in response on social media lost their mind. So considering, Women's History Month and the state of young men and how we feel like they are lost, are women right on time and men are late as usual? Or if there's something to pick apart here?
I mean, when you think about, so I wonder with the women 18 to 24, were they answering that question about men writ large, or were they focusing on men in their age group? I'm not saying this to set up a scapegoat. I'm just wondering.
That's the vibe I got from the article, that it was in response to their peers.
Like so men and their peers, but
there's also a study from 23. There was here in the U.S. where from women from ages I think 18 to 50, and it was very 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 similar. Very similar.
Okay, all right. So they ain't grow out of it at 25.
Yeah. What say you, Kev?
It's sad. I was telling the story how, I don't know, the book Beartown. I can't remember the name of the author, but this fiction book Beartown. There's a story where in it a young lady is sexually assaulted by like a star hockey player in the town. And in describing and talking just about her feelings, and one of the there's a section in the book where they describe it as, it said, when young boys are afraid, they're afraid of monsters. When young women are afraid, they're afraid of men. And initially I want to be like, no, that's not the case. But yeah, I get it. Even as fathers, as uncles, as everything, we feel the same way. And it's an unfortunate situation. I know not every man is a monster. I get that. We're nothing, but we know that there's some monster, devilish behavior within our ranks, within our midst.
We can't have this conversation and not lift up Brother Malcolm, where he said the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And I know that the stat in the report was women across the board. But there's no way that we would say mode and mean of that fear is exactly the same across all groups. But I think it connects to a lot of objectification that shows up in different aspects of our culture. And the way that, honestly, we're old enough, we could look back and we were taught some pretty narrow, jacked up ways to look at women. And as much as we feel we've grown, clearly as a society we haven't, because if those 18 to 24-year-olds are primarily focusing on their peer group, and that's something that's not changing, then we raised them. You know what I mean? Like those men are our children.
Yeah.
Now, whether that is because they grew up without us, or in some instances they grew up with us, it both can fuel this toxic masculinity. And I don't want to sit here and pontificate and try to come up with rationales of how women play a role in their own fear and other things like that, because I don't want to entertain that angle. This is definitely a problem around how we are defining and exhibiting manhood across the board.
Yeah, in reading the article, there's a few things you ask. My first thought is this a continuation of society? Or is there something new going on? And I think it's both, because as Tim points out, when we were young, we had our toxic masculinity, and they bring up pornography. And I think, once again, social media is rearing its ugly head in making things even worse. Because our pornogaphy, when we were kids, that all boys seek out, was JCPenney catalogs or Playboy magazines or just very basic things. Whereas a 12-year-old boy just now, just the human body, the taboo human body that you couldn't find anywhere except cable television, and that was after 83.
And we was already in high school.
Exactly.
Yo, we're old. No, go ahead.
Nowadays, kids are introduced to pornography and they're actually seeing sex, but they're seeing not just a little bit of it, because by the time we got in our late teens, there were videos and things of that nature. But I think their whole introduction to sexuality and what is a sexual relationship is skewed, because
it's disjointed. It doesn't come together.
That is not real human sexuality. But it seems to be that is the way young men are approaching young women. And there's a lot of disrespect in pornography, horrendous, toxic masculinity, racism, misogyny, you name it. It's having a party in that field.
But also to that point, it's presented. Okay, we're gonna go back to our previous segment. It has become so prevalent that it is becoming normalized, so that it's not even being viewed as disrespectful and toxic. And you're right. You don't have to search for it. It's harder now to avoid it.
Yeah.
It's harder now to avoid it than it was for us to find it. Like, let that sink in for a minute.
We have a phrase that not safe for work.
Yeah.
Because things are so prevalent, to your point.
And
like you can't scroll on social media. Like, you can't scroll on Twitter without it popping up.
And IG too. Like, how did this get into your algorithm?
Yes.
But, and also, because you talk about cable in 83, And I present this theory with my students in my class that, okay, we could say the 90s, like there's always been sexual overtones and overtures in hip hop. But when you had the prevalence of the hip hop video, and then when you had primarily coming from the South, when you had this marriage between hip hop and erotic dancing, porn, stripper culture, whatever you want to call it, when they came together to the point where songs that used to get broken by Funkmaster Flex in the tunnel now are getting broken by DJs inside of Magic City. And what makes the song a hit before was like, yo, the crowd go crazy, whereas now this is a hit if you make it rain.
Yeah.
And so then over time, you start to make music directly for that. Then you do have women. Well, hey, if this is what's happening on the pole, what's going to happen when I grab the mic? And then they're still having men behind them. So all of this creates this ecosystem where I could see a high level of fear, and we as men can't come at women and make them like have to validate that. Like for the men who were upset because they chose to be with the bear, it's like, yo, get upset at yourself.
I mean, you have to be pretty tone deaf, but and back to that thing, I just think that the way men treat women in a very physical way, if women are experiencing that in real life, and young men think that's how I should physically interact with a young woman, that's scary. That's scary.
I'm sorry. There was an article in the Times, I think it was last year, where they talked about the prevalence of people being physical, choking, compressing women's necks, and I think they've even done episodes on Law and Order around that, like not where the women didn't give them consent, but the boys are seeing it. They're seeing it online. They think that this is part of what being intimate. This is part of intimacy. And unfortunately, without true knowledge, as we roll back sex education, as we limit what things can be taught, all of these things become a danger because this is something that exists. These are conversations that you have to have with your kids. Like you can't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah, I mean, no, because you could get your child in trouble because they can think that is what everyone does, and not, very specific situations, and
consent is required.
Yes, exactly. And in my life, the one thing I've learned is that your partners can be very different and very wildly different behaviors on things that make them comfortable, things that make them uncomfortable. And as a man, you need to be in tune with your partner. And this porn and all of that doesn't teach you to be in tune at all. And I'll also say the manosphere, I think, that has been on the internet, the Andrew Tate world, and the high value man. I don't know where this nonsense came from. I'm a high value man, so I only want this type of woman, and all of that whole craziness. Oh, you're a woman, you got 2 babies, you're no longer valuable. Meanwhile, you got 3 kids yourself, but because you're a dude, it's okay, and she's no longer valuable.
I think even before we get into the physical, just the tone and the words that we use that get accepted in how we speak to women, the rationalization for losing control against a woman based on what she does, and we will, as a society, challenge the woman to address her behavior before really, as men, honoring ourselves by walking in self-control. and checking ourselves and raising young men to understand the power of walking away, that it is not weak to like, yo, I'm never going to put myself in a position where I'm going to do or say something that is beyond how I want to carry myself. But the part of this root is, and we're old enough, we were raised where a percentage of how we qualified and quantified our manhood was connected to how we interacted with women.
Yeah.
You a man, you the man because you A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Like when we was young, true friendship without sex wasn't celebrated. When we was young, like just like, yo, this is she's a friend. Like there is no romance, there is no intimacy. She's a friend. Or when it comes time to getting into a relationship that's going to lead to getting married, like some people would look at the three of us as all being married to the same woman for 20 plus years as strange. And like really, like, and like, well, then they start picking, like, you mean you never, or you never thought, or did you almost, like, you faking. But the person that's been divorced, the person that has a rack of children with different women, they're not deemed faking. Like, they're deemed real, and we're not. It's like, make that make sense.
Yeah. I think that we've got to also take the positives of, we challenge masculinity, and we've largely in part said it needs to go away, traditional masculinity. And I think that was a mistake. We should have picked it apart.
Yes.
And kept the positives, because part of the way I look at masculinity also is that it's a responsibility.
Yes.
It's a responsibility as a man, to be a protector, to be a provider, to be a leader. And that doesn't mean that my wife doesn't lead. That doesn't mean that if a burglar doesn't come in this house, we ain't both fighting, because that's probably what would happen. But I'm going to be the one to go downstairs and check the noise. I'm not going to say, honey, you need to go.
Yo.
But I doubt, knowing my wife, and I think Kevin could attest to this, that if I'm throwing hands, my wife is probably going to come in behind me.
She might be in front of you. Side by side, back to back.
I'm yes. I'll just say yes.
He's like every show we bringing up somebody. What's happening this season? This definitely might be our last season.
I've seen things. Yes,
we're going. I'm about to say our toxic masculinity is about to get our podcast canceled. But Aaron, even to your point, in both ways, this connection to our manhood being at the expense of a woman has been problematic, because now to do the things that you just said, the pushback will be, oh, you telling me as a woman that I can't, or that I am less than? And the reality is, like, absolutely not.
Nope.
That's like, okay, if you're using the metaphor of there's only one ball, only one person can take the last shot. And so my wife will always tell, because for a moment I'll say, and Kev, you can take us out of the segment, this toxic masculinity has been perverted with religiosity. And you'll get that, wives, you're supposed to submit to your husband, and people will use the Bible to browbeat, and it will heighten this. And so I love my wife because she will champion the cause that's like, listen, there's nothing about me that's less than because I'm the one that is scrutinizing and determining whether my husband is worthy of my submission.
Yeah.
And her thing was, it's like, oh, because I'm, she's like, you're going to learn how to love me the way that I want to be loved. So then, okay, if you want to make the connection, my masculinity now is in me passing, in part, the test that she's giving me for how do I position myself as a provider, as a protector, and knowing that we co-do this. Like, please, I'm an entrepreneur. She gets paid 2 times a month, regular.
Yeah, regular.
Like, please, this is definitely a partnership. as my brother Reggie Jacks, like we out here in these entrepreneurial streets. We can't be like, I'm a man, and be like, you're broke.
Yeah, it's like you're not a man this month.
Exactly. Be like, I checked the mail. No man today. You're not a man today, pal. The invoice is still outstanding. You're not a man.
Yeah. No, but also it's true though, man. And I think there's also confusion because, like you said, Tim, a lot of women will push back and say, I don't need a man to do any of those things. But then men also find themselves in a world, because we got to show a little love to men, where if they aren't a provider, if they aren't all the things, a high value man, those type of things, like you out here getting it, then most women are going to view you as weak and undesirable. And I think there's a stat that 80% of the women are out here attracted to 20% of the men. And then that 20% of the men tend to be
run amok.
Yeah, run amok and act a fool because the odds are in their favor.
And then go to black colleges and lose their mind.
Yes. No, it's true. So if you think about that as a man and you're trying to be your best self, but then your best self goes against 2025 version of a masculinity, then that you see all these young men in their confusion. Yeah. You see them not knowing, well, what is it to be a man? And they're taking social cues from social media. And there's so many bad takes out there that we have a generation of men that are sadder, more depressed, lost, and they come up with dumb phrases like high value men.
Yeah, I think too often we go back to like masculinity, manhood. I forget the congressman that wrote the book about just masculinity, like man, and they want to go back to a prior era. And if you go back to a prior era, that can't exist today, because back then a man could work at the Ford Motor Company, a man could be doing industrial work and take care of the family, buy a house, and do all of those things
with a single income.
There are very few men, even as a professional man, there are very few men that can do that and just take care of the entire family. Most times, everybody has to work. And if everybody has to work, then the rules are different. In our lifetime, now we were young, we were basically babies, but in our lifetime, women didn't have the right to open their own bank accounts. Women couldn't have their own credit card.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, at this point in time, women have more rights than they've ever had. And we are nowhere near. They are nowhere near where they need to be. You think about a time when people would put their hands on women, sexually, grab women, slap women, touch
call them out their name,
at work, say things, like all of these things, and now there's less and less things that you can do, and some men unfortunately are just having a problem with that. I always say, I think that in our crew we've got good men around women, good men about dealing with their women, dealing with women in general, raising their kids. And as good as we are, raise your kids to be even better than us. Like we're trying to raise our kids, or the people in our cipher, to be better than we are.
Yeah, and be better than us sooner.
Yes.
And honestly, because as we wrap this, man, because my heart goes out to our nephews in Lou 5, because based upon social media and what the expectations are, I can say confidently the three of us wouldn't have been able to afford our wives at this. Like, think about the stage we were when we got married. Like, honestly, think about it. We're all sitting in homes today because we were given the opportunity to build with our wives.
Yeah.
What's being presented now is we're supposed to have all of that in order by 27. It's like, like my resume was still one page. And for those who don't know what that means, y'all can figure that out, man. But
pre-LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-LinkedIn.
He said pre-LinkedIn.
Yo.
No.
Pre-Craigslist. Craig wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, man.
That's when you was getting the big, large classified in the Sunday Washington Post. Yeah. Like, I know I'm gonna find a job. This is the bonus. This is the week. This is the week I'm gonna get it, man. But but we gonna keep moving. We gonna keep working. This podcast, we will always not only challenge, but I love what you said. Hey, I think there are some positives out there that we got to do a better job at lifting and elevating. Because, like you said, you can't throw out the baby, the bathwater, and the bathtub, and then wonder why you're dirty and the baby's crying.
Yeah, I mean, And my last thing is, I feel bad for young women, and I feel bad for young men, because I don't see a clear answer to resolve this. And young men, don't be upset. You got to think about it from a young woman's point of view, what a bear could do to her once, and the horror a human being with a brain could bring out in the woods all alone. So don't push back. Show some empathy, because women have a point.
Yeah, don't push back. Take a moment and learn.
Yep. On to the next.
Yeah.
The feel-good story of the day.
Yeah.
We
need something good.
Howard University.
HU
for 31 years, I believe, they've been running something known as alternative spring break. Rather than going away to Miami, to South Beach, or these other places,
or even home,
or going home, making a bunch of bad, rash decisions, they're going on to these communities and doing service projects all around, doing service projects. This year, Howard sent the most people they've sent in the history of their alternative spring break, over 1,300 students. They've gone to 22 different locations to participate. What are your thoughts about this?
I'll say I think it's great. And being on campus, I am most proud of how the students value the experience. Like, it is something that they revere. Like, it's something that they proudly will say, like, hey, I applied, I got accepted, I've gone. I've talked to students who've done it multiple times. I've talked to some students where, okay, I didn't do it this year, but I heard about it and I'm going to do it next year. So I really think that it brings the best out in them. It helps them appreciate what they have, and it really drives them to keep a certain level of that servant leadership inside of them as they go on their career pursuits at the school.
I think that service is something that used to exist for young college students 100 years ago. That those type of things were considered normal. I think in the present day, I don't like the track meet that applying for college has become, and the boxes that you got to tick. And one of those boxes has always been service. I need to volunteer. And I've seen it in real life up close and personal. Some of those kids are doing it because they believe, and some of those kids are doing it for their college admissions,
for their profile,
for their profile only.
And some school districts won't even let you graduate without having your service learning.
Yes. And something as important as that, to me, need not be a tick on your resume. So to hear college students who don't have to do this fall back to what we did 100 years ago as something that was natural is a beautiful thing. Not to mention, they're doing it on spring break. They're not doing it at Christmas break. They're not doing it in the summer. They're doing it in the 1 week where college students historically have let off steam and acted a fool. So when you're giving service at that most important time for you to be selfish, I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that to hear that it's competitive. I'm glad to hear that the students are running to this, because I worry about my young people and kids of that age, probably 40 and younger. I worry about you.
The process helps weed out what you were speaking about, like that. I can tell you, the process weeds out. And because like they're going to some spots, like they're hitting Flint, like, so it's not,
there's no benefit.
They're not going to spots where it's like, okay, I did this for a couple of hours, but then I can go here. And
they're not going to Costa Rica to build some homes. Chill on the beach.
No, they're not. And when they come back next week is midterms. So to your point, spring break really is that hump. Let me take a breath. Let me wow out, because when I come back, March, April, the semester is over. To use that time serving, but it's also something that the faculty, they uplift as well, and so you have a lot of adults that participate in it and go with them, and where they're going more times than not, they're traveling by bus. So it is something that as a community, they fundraise, because the key is providing these opportunities for the students to serve without the students having to pay, because that would then alienate some students who don't have the funds.
Wow.
So there's a fundraising component to that. So maybe next year that's something that we can support. But it's definitely a great program.
When we were in school and before the protest, one of our complaints during the protest was we didn't feel that we were connected with the community
at all.
And we complained. We said that, hey, we wanted programs so we could reach out to the community. I think at the time, our group, Black Near Force, we had started doing some tutoring in a church down there by SLO. And then some of us took it further and we started tutoring. We started working with some of the kids personally and things like that. And we were struggling trying to find things to do. That's kind of what led me to teaching, just kind of enjoying those tutoring moments when I was pushing into the classroom. That awful summer we were down there alone, Tim, with no money. but it's good to see that they've
1989.
1989.
What a year.
What a year. But it's great that they've created something that's long lasting, where people can join, become a part of, and you can be involved in the community, because it's important. Howard University, people talk a lot about Howard. People talk a lot about how great Howard is. People talk now pushing back why is only Howard, Morehouse, and Spelman always getting all the money. So there's a lot of things that are going on. So it's great to see that they're actually out there doing things, known than more than just receiving the money, more than known just as the arrogant school, known as more than just the party school. That they're actually going out there doing work and doing things in a major way. So
and think about it, the 1300 Like that just represents the young people who are participating in the alternative spring break. But I'm pretty sure there's probably hundreds of more young people who may be like, okay, I'm gonna go home and maybe work back at where I was working in my community for that week. And so just thinking about it differently. So I think it was great to go from the segment we went to into this, because I think sometimes as adults we can get jaded in our view of young people. That I will always have faith. Aaron, I know what you're saying, but no, honestly, because for you, what you were saying, having that concern and worry, to me is an extension of the hope and the faith. Because if you didn't have any hope and faith in them, you wouldn't be worried about them. It'd just be like they're a lost, they're lost cause, or you wouldn't care. But the truth of the matter is, you get to see close up. And then when you see that one or two, you don't treat them as anomalies. It's like, no, if that person was able to pull through, what about that person? So, you want
the whole story. And any story that says a generation of kids are all X is a problem.
All in that context, all's a bad word.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you're saying all are worthy of love.
Even that might be wrong.
Wow. Aaron has just turned into Reggie Jacks.
Aaron's like, there's some detestable people out there.
It's like there's some kids that are worthy of the gas face.
Yes.
So, all right, let's swing into this Robinson report.
What?
All right, now it's time for the Robinson report. We about to get into those things.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. It's time for the Robinson report. We're going to talk about those things that are giving you life or making Reggie Jacks mad. You know what? That last event was so happy, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. Twisted between.
He'll figure it out.
I'll tell you this. If the Robinson report doesn't make Kevin happy or unhappy, we're all doomed. So I need to know what, when, how, and you're up first.
So in this context, all is appropriate.
Yes, he's either all the way happy or he's all the way mad.
Yeah, there's no mid ground with Reggie Jacks.
What you got, bro?
Why am I mad? You know what?
Let me count the ways.
I keep a list of things to be mad at. Literally, I got like 20 things on a list to like just things that make me angry. But you know what? I just finished watching the show on I don't know if it's Hulu, Paramount, Paradise.
That's Hulu.
Did you talk about it today?
No, we talked about it. I don't know.
Okay, all right. So Paradise on Hulu, starring Sterling Brown.
Yes, don't forget the K.
Sterling K. Brown. Yes, I'm sure that's there for a reason. Sterling K. Brown is a lead detective, and it's about basically something happens to the world. They have to go live underground in that place there. I guess it's called Paradise.
Giving away too much.
Giving away too much, but it's a great story. It's a great story. I just finished it this week, and I really enjoyed it. You know, watching a strong Black lead, and then just hearing him do interviews, him and his wife talking, and just kind of it's kind of watching them do the circuit and the rounds, and just kind of looking at their loving relationship and their long-term relationship is something I really enjoy. So that makes me happy.
Okay, go.
So I'm gonna go. This book right here, The Hip Hop Mindset. Shout out to the sis, Dr. Toby S. Jenkins.
Yes.
I really self-plug. I'm interviewed in the book, but I'm currently teaching a course for a bunch of. That's dope. I'm currently teaching a course through the organization called Math for America, with a bunch of science and math educators out of New York. And we're using the book, The Hip Hop Mindset, because she just presents hip hop mindfulness and as an approach, and how you can have that hip hop aesthetic as an approach to education or whatever your profession is. So she does a really great job in presenting hip hop beyond the artistic expressions, giving the context behind it. That's like, oh, they brag, but bragging is really a state of mind. And even wearing jewelry, like, it's reflective of a state of mind and things of that nature. So shout out to the sis, Dr. Toby Jenkins. The book is called The Hip Hop Mindset. It's an easy but very informative and informational read. My sis, Tony Blackman, is also interviewed in there. Remember, she came up in one of our recent shows. So, yeah. So that's my Robinson report, because I'm reading it and finishing it up to get ready for my class on Monday. So that's what's giving me life.
Good for the sister. What's the name again?
Dr. Toby S. Jenkins, and that's Toby.
And the name of the book again
is The Hip Hop Mindset.
Yes.
Right here,
Nice.
right here. Since we going live, I got show and tell.
Yeah, that's right, man. So in 2015, Netflix, was going crazy with their TV shows, and they rolled out a set of Marvel things that weren't worthy of films, and they came out with a show called Daredevil. Very violent show, not necessarily as cookie cutter as most of Marvel fare. It was a real big hit, was on TV for 3 years. Then Netflix and Marvel had some creative differences and the show went away, not because it was bad or ratings were bad, but the relationship had soured. Last week, or actually earlier this week, Marvel brought back Daredevil Born Again on their platform, Disney Plus. I could not be more happier. It is mindless, fun entertainment. It has nothing to do with seeing a black man and his wife rocking out like Sterling K. Brown, but it is good TV. So anybody who watched the first show eagerly awaited this one to come back. It took years. So I would recommend anybody who likes or read a comic book when they were young, and you probably read Daredevil because that was some of the best coloring you ever seen. One of the dopest suits ever on a comic book hero. Daredevil Born Again is back. That's my Robinson report.
Cool. Way to go. Well, we got through an episode. We rode the roller coaster of emotions. We thank you all for rocking with us. So part of that salutations. This is Tim. My mic sounds nice. See you next time around.
My mic sounds nice. This is Reggie Jacks. Same piece.
My mic sounds nice. This is Aaron from Strong Island. Another one tucked to bed. And we'll be waking up another one in 2 weeks from now. Peace.
And if LeBron can still run and play past 40, we can still do this podcast in our 50s.
Never lie. Peace.
Peace. Yeah, I forgot to talk about Stephen A. pressing LeBron. Maybe that should have been my joint.
Well, your joint would have been LeBron